Clarity creates connection because at the core of every human interaction is the need to understand and be understood. When you think about the relationships that shaped you most, they weren't built on vague signals or half-truths. They were built on certainty, on knowing exactly where you stood and what the other person represented. Confusion is exhausting. It forces the mind to guess, to overanalyze, to fill in gaps with assumptions. Certainty, on the other hand, creates safety. It allows someone to lean in without hesitation because they don't have to question your intention or doubt your direction. Clarity isn't just about the words you speak. It's about the energy you carry and the way you present yourself. When you're clear about your values, people know instantly whether they align with you or not. That alignment either draws them closer or filters them out, and both outcomes serve you. Because nothing destroys connection faster than mixed signals. If you send a message with your actions that contradicts your words, you create doubt. Doubt breeds mistrust. Mistrust pushes people away. The power of clarity is that it eliminates that gap. Imagine walking into a room where someone stands tall, speaks with conviction, and makes their intentions known without hesitation. You don't waste energy wondering if they're hiding something or calculating their next move. You feel drawn to them because they simplify the interaction. They give you permission to relax. That's what clarity does. It reduces friction. And in a world where most people hide behind masks or fear speaking their truth, the one who communicates directly becomes magnetic. Connection doesn't thrive in noise, it thrives in signal. Too many people think connection is about pleasing others, saying what they want to hear, or bending themselves to fit. But that only creates temporary closeness built on falsehoods. Lasting connection demands honesty. It requires you to know who you are, what you stand for, and what you won't compromise. When you show up with that level of transparency, you invite others to do the same. And that exchange, your truth meeting their truth, is where authentic bonds form. Clarity also creates momentum. Think about leaders who inspire. They don't do it by offering a vague picture of the future. They paint it with detail. They make it visible and tangible so others can see themselves inside it. That vision creates collective energy because clarity provides direction. People want to follow someone who knows where they're going. In relationships, it's no different. A clear sense of self is attractive because it offers stability. People want to be around someone who doesn't second-guess their every step. But clarity isn't loud or forceful. It doesn't mean pushing your opinions or dominating others. It's not about arrogance. It's about alignment. It's about saying, this is me, without apology. That quiet confidence is far more powerful than any attempt to impress. Because the moment you try too hard, you've already betrayed your own clarity. True clarity doesn't beg to be noticed. It simply is. And in its simplicity, it creates the deepest kind of connection. The one where another person feels safe enough to lower their guard, to be fully present, and to trust. Boldness inspires curiosity because it disrupts the patterns people are used to. Most individuals live in routines, following predictable behaviors, speaking in expected ways, and rarely taking risks that set them apart. That predictability makes them blend into the background. But when you dare to act differently, when you choose to step outside of what is ordinary, you interrupt that rhythm. Suddenly, people pay attention. They lean in because they sense something unusual, something they don't fully understand yet. Curiosity awakens not in the presence of sameness, but in the presence of difference. And boldness is the fuel that sparks that difference. Boldness doesn't always mean loudness. It can be as simple as being the one in the room who asks the question no one else dares to ask. It can be the act of walking away when everyone else stays silent. It can be standing firm in your values when the crowd bends to convenience. These moments make you unforgettable because they reveal courage. Courage is rare, and rarity captures attention. People may not always agree with boldness, but they cannot ignore it. They will think about it long after the moment has passed because it struck a chord, disrupted a norm, or challenged their expectations. Curiosity is the natural response to boldness because the human mind wants to solve puzzles. When you encounter someone who refuses to blend in, your brain asks, why did they choose that? What drives them to act in this way? What do they know that I don't? That hunger to understand is the root of curiosity. And once curiosity is sparked, connection deepens because people begin to invest mental and emotional energy into figuring you out. Boldness plants the seed, and curiosity keeps it growing. Think of the leaders, creators, or even friends who left the deepest mark on you. They weren't the ones who did everything the way it was supposed to be done. They were the ones who dared to challenge the system, who risked being misunderstood, who chose originality over acceptance. That boldness made you notice them. It made you curious about how they saw the world. And in many cases, it likely inspired you to question your own limitations. That is the lasting power of boldness. It doesn't just draw attention, it shifts perspectives. The mistake many people make is believing that safety creates connection. They think blending in, never rocking the boat, or always following the script is what will earn acceptance. But safety breeds invisibility. When you're safe, you're forgettable. Boldness, on the other hand, might create resistance, but it also creates memory. People may not remember what you said in a moment of politeness, but they will remember the time you took a stand. They may not recall the hundreds of ways you tried to fit in, but they'll never forget the one time you stood out. Boldness also creates self-respect. Acting differently isn't just about attracting curiosity from others. It's about confirming to yourself that you are willing to live authentically. Each bold action becomes evidence that you refuse to settle for mediocrity. That energy radiates outward. People don't become curious about those who betray themselves to be liked. They become curious about those who live so unapologetically that others feel compelled to understand how. Boldness isn't just an external signal, it's an internal declaration of freedom. Consistency builds trust because trust is never built in a single moment. It is the product of repeated actions, behaviors, and decisions that align over time. One grand gesture can impress someone, but only consistency sustains connection. What you do once may capture attention, but what you do repeatedly creates belief. People want to know they can rely on you, not just occasionally, but continuously. That reliability is what makes someone magnetic, because it transforms uncertainty into assurance. Every human being is wired to look for patterns. We study the actions of others not just in the present, but across time to see if they match their words. If someone says they value respect but constantly crosses boundaries, inconsistency erodes trust. If they promise commitment but disappear when it's inconvenient, the pattern of unreliability becomes louder than their words. On the other hand, when actions and words align again and again, doubt fades away. Each repetition builds a foundation layer by layer until trust becomes automatic. Consistency is magnetic because it's rare. In a world full of people who shift with moods, circumstances, and convenience, the one who remains steady becomes invaluable. People gravitate to consistency because it provides safety. It allows them to relax into connection without bracing for disappointment. This steadiness becomes addictive because the human heart longs for security. We don't bond with perfection, we bond with predictability. Knowing that someone will show up time and time again matters more than any flawless performance. Consider how relationships evolve. At the start, people are drawn by spark, novelty, and excitement. But excitement alone is not sustainable. What determines whether that initial spark grows or dies is consistency. Showing up with respect not just once, but every time. Listening not just when it's convenient, but when it's difficult. Honoring your word not just when it benefits you, but when it costs you something. These repeated choices create the invisible glue that holds relationships together. Trust is also cumulative. Each consistent action adds a deposit into the emotional bank account. Every time you follow through on what you say, you reinforce belief. But inconsistency makes withdrawals. Too many broken promises, too much unpredictability, and the account runs empty. When that happens, even the strongest connection collapses. The beauty of consistency is that it requires no perfection, just discipline. People don't expect you to be flawless, but they expect you to be steady. And that steadiness is what turns admiration into loyalty. Consistency also reflects character. It shows that who you are doesn't change with the room you're in or the people you're with. It proves that your values are not negotiable based on circumstance. That integrity is what makes others trust not just your actions, but your essence. Because when people know your core doesn't shift, they know they can anchor themselves to you. And once they feel anchored, they don't want to let go. That magnetism is the byproduct of a consistent character that never bends to convenience. If you study those who leave a lasting impact, they are rarely the flashiest or most unpredictable. They are the ones who showed up again and again in ways both big and small, until their presence became inseparable from trust. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is powerful. It is the slow, steady force that builds something no single moment ever could. That is why what's repeated over time becomes magnetic, because it turns fleeting connection into unshakable trust. Respect fuels desire because desire is not built on what is easily accessed, but on what is valued. Human nature is drawn to things that feel significant, things that carry weight, things that require effort. When something is handed over without conditions, it loses its shine. But when it is earned, when it is given with discernment, it becomes priceless. Respect is the ingredient that transforms ordinary attention into lasting desire, because it signals that what you offer cannot be taken for granted. We don't truly value what costs us nothing. Think about the times in your life when you worked hard for something, a degree, a career breakthrough, a personal goal. The satisfaction came not from the result alone, but from the effort it demanded of you. The same principle applies to relationships. When respect is at the foundation, it communicates that your time, your energy, and your presence are not casual commodities. They are privileges, and privileges must be earned. This elevates the dynamic because what is scarce becomes magnetic. Respect creates desire by introducing challenge. Challenge awakens pursuit, and pursuit strengthens investment. If someone knows they cannot simply walk in and claim all of you without first proving their consistency, their loyalty, and their worth, they lean forward. They pay attention. They rise to the standard you've set. Without respect, the dynamic flips. Instead of pursuing, people drift. Instead of cherishing, they overlook. Easy access diminishes value because the human heart is wired to crave significance, not shortcuts. Respect is not about building walls, it's about setting standards. It's about saying, this is the level of energy I accept, this is the treatment I require, this is the way I expect to be engaged with. That clarity not only filters out those who are unworthy, but also attracts those who are capable of rising higher. People crave boundaries even if they resist them, because boundaries communicate strength, and strength inspires desire far more than passivity ever could. There is also a deep psychological pull when respect is exchanged. When someone feels they have earned your respect, it validates them on a profound level. It tells them they matter, that their actions carry weight, that their effort is recognized. That validation makes them want to give more, to invest more, to keep earning it. Respect, therefore, is not a wall that keeps people away. It is a mirror that reflects their value back to them. And in that reflection, desire multiplies. The mistake many make is confusing attention with respect. Attention can be given to anyone, anywhere, at any time. It costs nothing to notice. But respect requires discernment. It requires observing, evaluating, and consciously choosing to give honor where it is deserved. That act alone elevates connection because it turns something ordinary into something sacred. Desire thrives in that environment because the exchange feels rare. And rarity is the soil in which deep attraction grows. When you examine the bonds that endure, they are never built on ease alone. They are built on mutual respect. They are built on the unspoken agreement that neither person takes the other for granted. That each interaction is valuable. That the connection itself is worth honoring. It is within that framework that desire doesn't just appear, but continues to expand. Because when someone feels they are engaging with a person who commands respect, they don't just want to stay. They feel compelled to. Mystery awakens attention because the human mind is wired to chase what it cannot fully grasp. Predictability may provide comfort, but it rarely creates fascination. When every action is obvious, when every thought is already revealed, curiosity fades. But when someone is unpredictable in a way that feels authentic, when their layers unfold gradually instead of all at once, they become compelling. Mystery does not confuse people, it captivates them. It keeps them leaning forward, wanting to discover more, because the unknown is far more magnetic than the obvious. Attraction is not born from complete knowledge, it is born from discovery. Think about the books or movies that stay with you the longest. They don't give everything away in the first chapter or first scene. They draw you in with hints, with unanswered questions, with small pieces that suggest there is more beneath the surface. Human beings are storytellers by nature, and when we sense there is more to the story, we cannot look away. Mystery fuels that storytelling instinct, making someone unforgettable. The less predictable you are, the more you break patterns in the minds of others. Most people behave according to scripts. They say the expected thing, follow the standard path, and never deviate from what feels safe. That safety might be comfortable, but it also becomes invisible. Mystery disrupts that invisibility. It creates contrast. When you don't reveal everything, when you carry yourself with depth that can't be decoded instantly, you stand out. That contrast becomes a spark in a world where sameness dominates. Mystery is not about manipulation. It is not about withholding the truth or playing games to confuse others. True mystery comes from depth. It comes from being someone who has more to their life than what meets the eye. When your passions, experiences, and thoughts cannot all be summed up in one interaction, you naturally invite attention. People want to know what drives you, what you believe, what you're building. They become invested in peeling back the layers because they sense that each layer holds meaning. The compelling part of mystery is not just what is hidden, but how it is revealed. When you allow people to discover you over time instead of rushing to give everything up front, you create a journey. That journey builds anticipation, and anticipation is one of the strongest forces in human psychology. It keeps people engaged because it gives them something to look forward to, something to unlock. Without mystery, there is no anticipation, and without anticipation, desire withers. Mystery also strengthens respect. When you are not easily predictable, you signal that you are not easily owned. You show that your identity is not fully accessible at first glance, that it requires time and effort to truly understand you. That scarcity elevates your value because people respect what they must earn. If everything about you is available instantly, it risks being overlooked. But when understanding you feels like a privilege, people take you more seriously. They give more energy, more attention, more investment, because they sense you are not casual with yourself. In every lasting connection, there is always an element of the unknown. It doesn't mean secrets, it means depth that continues to surprise. It means that even after years, there are still new sides to discover, new dimensions to explore, new ways of seeing the same person. That is the essence of mystery. It keeps attention alive, not just in the beginning, but over time. The less predictable you are, the more you invite discovery. And the more discovery you inspire, the more compelling you become. Would you like me to now expand as purpose shapes obsession in the same 600-word motivational tone, so the full keynote series is complete? Purpose shapes obsession because human beings are wired to follow meaning. When someone moves through life with a clear sense of why they do what they do, they create an energy that others cannot ignore. Most people drift, reacting to circumstances, chasing temporary rewards, or living according to expectations they never chose. That drifting creates emptiness, and emptiness creates invisibility. But when everything you do aligns with a bigger why, you radiate direction. That direction acts like gravity. It pulls others toward you without force, because people crave the stability and clarity that purpose provides. Purpose makes you magnetic because it simplifies your life. Every choice, every action, every word becomes consistent with a larger mission. That consistency eliminates hesitation and confusion. People don't have to wonder who you are or what you represent. They can see it in the way you live. That alignment inspires trust, and trust deepens attraction. When someone sees that your life is guided by a compass greater than momentary desire, they feel drawn to it because purpose signals strength. Strength is irresistible in a world where most people are searching for it. Obsession is not born from charm alone, it is born from depth. Charm can amuse, but it fades quickly when it lacks substance. Purpose, on the other hand, never fades because it gives everything you do weight. When people encounter you, they don't just see a person, they see a vision, a mission, a larger story unfolding. That story captures their imagination. They begin to think not only about who you are, but about where you are going, and whether they can be part of it. Purpose creates obsession because it invites others into a future bigger than themselves. The power of purpose is that it cannot be faked. You can pretend to be confident, you can act bold, you can mimic consistency. But purpose cannot be manufactured. It must be discovered, owned, and lived. When you are aligned with your why, it shows up in the smallest details. How you spend your time, how you handle setbacks, how you respond to temptation. That authenticity builds credibility. And credibility is what turns admiration into devotion. People may admire someone's talents, but they become obsessed with someone's mission. Purpose also creates resilience. People are not pulled in by those who crumble at every obstacle. They are pulled in by those who rise because they are anchored to something greater. When you face difficulty but remain steady, when you keep moving forward because your why is bigger than your pain, you ignite respect. That resilience becomes addictive to witness because it proves that you are not ordinary. Ordinary people are defined by their struggles, purposeful people are defined by their cause. That distinction makes you unforgettable. Living with purpose doesn't mean you must always have the perfect plan or know every step ahead. It means you refuse to live without direction. It means you choose to anchor your life to principles, to vision, to something meaningful enough to guide you through both triumph and failure. That commitment separates you from the majority, and separation creates fascination. People want to know what drives you, why you do what you do, and how they can experience the same clarity. That curiosity becomes the seed of obsession because they see in you something they long for in themselves. When everything you do aligns with a bigger why, you don't chase attention, it chases you. You don't beg for validation, it arrives naturally. You don't need to manipulate anyone to stay. They want to stay because being close to purpose makes them feel alive. That is why purpose shapes obsession. It transforms you from just another presence in the room into a force that others cannot look away from.